Now let's greet Ita and thanks again for the presence here. And we are going to the next session that will discuss about the solution that the youths are taking. And in particular, there's one experience that is similar to Climate Social Forum that has been happened just a few weeks before the Climate Social Forum, that is the MockCOP. So we have here Uchendu and Pauline. So welcome. Hi, Pauline. Hi, Uchendu. Hi. Such a pleasure to have you here. So this is the power of collaboration and connection. I remember when with Uchendu, we meet by Skype or by like these platforms, and we discuss about how to collaborate, how to make a network together between these two initiatives that are so similar. But the floor is yours now to tell the experience of MockCOP.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll let Kelo start. Like I'm used to saying Kelo, not Uchendu. So I'll let Kelo start. Kelo, welcome.
All right, thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Climate Social Forum, for having us on this platform to talk a little bit about MockCOP26. MockCOP26 actually started as a youth response to the postponement of COP26. When we heard about the postponement of COP26, the youth movement felt disappointed that we understand that climate emergency does not stop, but yet what readers find it convenient to postpone an important conference, an important climate conference such as COP26. So we started mobilizing to fill the void created by the postponement of COP26. And to do this, we try to leverage the network because we wanted to have a conference that is inclusive and as realistic as possible. We wanted to raise ambitions ahead of COP26 next year in Glasgow. So we leveraged the youth network, the youth organizations, the climate movement from around the world to try to recruit delegates, to try to recruit youth from all the countries to come together to represent their respective countries and raise ambition for COP26 next year. So we started on around September this year. We had about 18 student staff members who were organizers of this event, which I and Pauline was among the team. So we started mobilizing and started planning to get this, and we were able to get about over 360 delegates from around 152 countries to represent their respective countries. And the conference lasted for about 2 weeks. And at the end of the conference, we are able to come up with 18 ambitious policy ideas and suggestions that we want world leaders to adopt. And these policy ideas are based on 5 main themes, which we focused on at MockCOP26, which includes climate justice. We understand that it is important that people see climate justice as an issue, as a question of ethical and moral justice, because we understand, just like the Climate Social Forum, we understand that there is no climate justice or there is without social justice. We find out that this issues is interrelated. And in MockCOP26, we try to give more voices to underrepresented communities that have never been able to, that never have the opportunity to speak out. We made sure that votes from countries in the global south carries more weight than votes from countries in the global north. And again, one of our another of our major themes is climate education. We believe that at the fundamental level, that climate education will lead to climate action. So we want countries to make sure that climate education is being included in the curriculum, right at all levels of education, right from the very first step on education to even at the tertiary level. We believe that people understanding what is not just because climate change, but solution-based climate education, letting people understand what the future holds for them, the threats we are being faced by climate change and the possible ways to mitigate it. I personally have seen how people understanding how climate education is leading to individual climate action. Another of our theme is on health and well-being. We understand that to some extent there is eco-anxiety exists, where people learning about climate change and how it threatens their future can lead to anxiety. Another of our another of our key team is in the national determined contributions, that's the NDCs. To be honest, I think the NDCs was one of the key takeaway of the Paris Climate Agreement, because it's through the national determined contributions that countries can actually ramp up ambitions for climate action. So we believe that it is also a very important aspect. So we try to bring out these key teams together and let youth to decide what are their countries doing to tackle climate change, and what do they think, and how do they think that their respective countries can tackle climate change. So at the end of the day, youth submitted their high-level statement stating what their countries have been doing and what they think the countries will do better to tackle climate change. And we worked with a team of lawyers from client end who helped shape this high-level statement into a legal treaty that national government can adopt into law. So that's a little brief about climate, about MockCOP. I will now pass over to Pauline to continue.
Thank you very much, Kelo. Thank you for that. So that was a good insight. So the ideal world of meaningful youth engagement should, I believe, should consider all the inputs at all stages, including decision making, implementation, and monitoring of the programs and also the policies. So young people voices should be heard without judgment, stigma, or discrimination, or even threats of their life, because we have had cases whereby climate activists or social justice activists, their lives have been taken. The recent one that I was also fighting for was the one that happened in South Africa. There's this lady called Fikile. Fikile was shot dead at her home because she was fighting for a coal plantation that was to be built in South Africa. So such cases, to ensure youth engagement, such cases of threats and discrimination should be dealt with thoroughly. We also have issues of incorporating the marginalized voices, just as MockCOP was included, inclusive with targeted marginalized voices or vulnerable voices, especially those from the global south. So in order to achieve ideal world for youth engagement, strategic investment need to be made. So through MockCOP, we provided a platform for the youth consultations and negotiations that resulted into a global statement, just as Kelo have said, or rather a declaration plus a letter to the world leaders that was aimed at raising awareness and ambition, raising ambition to COP26. So we are looking forward to world leaders adopting these policies that are aimed at structuring or restructuring the climate and ecological breakdown that we had. So our main aim for MockCOP was to show the world leaders how it would be if youth are left to run the COP. In most instances, we have had this phrase of youth are the leaders of tomorrow. It's always all of us, but what I do say is that youth are the leaders of today. We should start with today, because our opportunities, needs, and choices regarding our health and our rights and plus our well-being will be defined to shape the future. So if we really want to go to the future, then we should start having getting our voices heard today. Also on the same note, we young people, we play a very important and a crucial role in ensuring that the youth voices are heard. We cannot just be on the street every time, that we need our voices to be heard. We need our voices to be heard, but we are not taking a step forward. So we have had platforms like MockCOP, and also I'm glad we are having this platform like Climate Social Forums to ensure that we how do we say, we ensure that youth voices like are actually heard, and are, like we offer platforms where youth voices will be heard. So in the recent past, youth have been taking part in climate advocacy work. Therefore, I think that issues related with climate and ecological breakdown, youth should like take part in it. It's sort of like youth engagement is sort of like a right. Youth decision making and engagement is a right, be it at national level, be it at international level. It should not be like we are doing you a favor. No, it's not a favor. You are defining something that will happen in future. You are the people, you are the same people that will be in future. So like it's a right for you, and it's very important for you to start laying down the foundation immediately. And also you realize that when the role of young people are recognized, these open doors are like for many youth engagement platforms. So like if you see that we have today, like one person has been nominated or like selected to do something in one sector, you'll realize that more youth are capable to be like selected or are getting selected in different sectors. So if you champion for the youth engagement at one sector, you realize that it opens door for other sectors. So there have been also efforts by the government or different entities like to engage youth, but it have not been successful. Why? It have not been, I feel like it have not been successful because youths are not like listened to, or they are not resourced enough. They are not provided with enough resources to be on such platform. Let's say that we have a youth jury in a like a social setup. There's like, or an organization, there's a youth jury. You'll find that the voice of the youth, like the youth is just there to confirm that we had one person, but his decisions, like the contribution like he or she will make, will be very minimal. Why? Because like they just put the position there to tell other people like we had a youth during this event or during this thing that we were carrying out. So it's always important to ensure that when you go somewhere as a youth to represent or do anything, ensure that your voice is heard, your engagement, your ideas, and your expertise is used to the fullest. So on trying to ensure that meaningful youth engagement is there, we should also take note of the barriers that lead to like meaningful youth engagement. We have had so many barriers that have led to not incorporation of youth ideas or expertise in different sectors. So we should also work towards ensuring that youth these barriers, and we provide solution to them. Thank you very much, Dominic. Back to you.
Thanks to you, and thanks for also sharing your experience of MockCOP, that you noted also that has several similarities with the Climate Social Forum, and that's good because this means that like the youth movement and the climate movement is resilient also to some bad situation. And I also appreciate the words of Pauline when she said about the rights of youth to speak and to be listened. Today we had in the morning the track related to democracy, and it's important to grant in a democratic way the voice of youth to be heard. But also you face out the difficulties and the struggles to create also some spaces that also they are virtual to let the voice of youth be heard. So I asking you, which kind of struggles do you face in, for example, organizing the experience of Youth COP, and how, with maybe your vision, innovative vision of youth, you have been able to overcome?
So thank you very much. Like, that's a good question. Like I mentioned before, there's always lack of resources. You will never get the resources, and the resources are, if you get them, they are so minimal that you cannot be able to clear with your work. So for example, like in MockCOP, to be specific, resource funding was a challenge. So we organized like a crowdfunder, and we had also donors come in. So that is how like we capped that problem. So we also had issues of language is always like a barrier. Like the world is so big, and there are different people with different languages. So getting like all of those people together was very difficult. So we had like to bring interpreters, to bring people who understand other languages in. Yeah, so that was the inclusivity part. Also the part for the disability, somebody might be deaf and want to join, is really eager to join the event. So that is a very great challenge. In fact, we had an NDC consultation, and there were like here in Kenya, and there was a deaf guy who really wanted to join, but I don't know, we were not that advanced enough in technology wise, like to allow the guy. So you just had to like write things down and send him. Like we just wrote stuff for him. Like it was so much difficult. On another issue was not so many people like are capable of getting like data or connection to join the event, especially those that are happening on Zoom or webinars or just the social media. So you'll find like people from low income communities are unable to join because they don't really have that capability of joining. And on the same note, people that had internet issues, like internet issues is always a problem for most of people, especially in Africa. So the disconnection and the connection wise, they end up like losing concentration. I'll leave Kelo, if you have a point you can add on that.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. I think one key thing that you said that strike me is the disability part. We found one thing, I think one area I think the youth movement is still lacking is making adequate provision for people with disability. Because if you look at the broader youth climate movement, you find out that most people who who champion the cause, most people at the forefront of this cause are not people with disability. And I've been in a conference like this, and a question, one of the participants who is someone with disability asked the question, how do we include people with disability? And that was why when it occurred to me that, oh, there are a whole lot of community out there that is being neglected by the crime movement. And at MockCOP26, that was one thing. Even going through our website, we even during the design of our website, we design our website with the understanding that we have delegates who are, we have delegates who are blind, we have delegates who are disabled in so many, I don't want to say disabled, differently able. So and trying to, the concept of inclusivity does not, we do not necessarily have to, when we say the word inclusive, we have to be inclusive both in gender, both in race, and also trying to include these people that have been neglected all this while. And that is one of the, that is also one of the challenges we face in organizing MockCOP26. When sharing information in Slack, we have to make sure that there are delegates who are differently abled. So we have to make sure that all form of information should be accessible both to to this.
Okay, I think that there was a disconnection problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe let's give the floor to Kelo after, and I will go to one next question is about the outcomes of MockCOP, in which you are more like proud of, we can say. You tell about the process and so on, but maybe also a part of the final result that you were expected, which things you can bring with you by this experience of MockCOP? What you can remember from this experience, also in a feeling and so on?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the whole experience was fantastic, and it's always good working with youth. When you work with youth, like, it's a whole different energy. So one very important outcome that came out of MockCOP26 was the global statement and the letter to the world leaders. I don't know, actually the global statement policy, let me say declaration, were 18. I don't know if you can allow me to read them. Is it possible to allow me to read them?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, like, we had 18 policies that were, we had 18 policies from the 5 themes. So let me just start by reading them to save on time.
You want to share
okay.
the screen?
No, let me just read them. Then I'll send you the document so that you can share with the participant and also those on the social media. Is it possible?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, and you can also find the information at www.mockcop.org/treaty. So you'll find the declaration. So the declaration were voted for by the delegates, and also they were brought from the discussion and the negotiation for the 2 weeks. So the very first one was on climate education. It stated that nations shall ensure that all school-age children, regardless of how they are schooled, are provided with comprehensive and up-to-date teaching regarding the climate emergency and ecological crisis. That was the very first one on climate education. We do value climate education, and it should be like part of the curriculum, or it should be like taught in school. So the second one on climate education, nations shall ensure that school-age children, regardless of how they are schooled, are given the opportunity to learn about their connection with nature, including but not limited to drawing upon the knowledge and practices of indigenous people. There you note the importance of indigenous people. On our next theme was climate justice. We took 6 policies on climate justice, as climate justice is always an important factor in climate crisis. So nations shall extend legal protection to the rights of indigenous people, including land rights, way of life and livelihood, supporting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The second one on that was that the United Nations should formally recognize the human rights to a healthy environment, including the right to a safe climate. So on this, a UN Universal Declaration on Rights of Nature should also be implemented. Another one was nations shall make industrial agriculture, mining and extraction and other polluting industries responsible in law for upholding sustainable practices and complying with regulation regarding full and swift restoration and cleanups, and the rights of their workers and the neighboring communities. Taking responsibility, that is always very important. You have to take responsibility of your actions if you know the actions are affecting the life and the health of the community and people around you. Another one is nations shall introduce a law making wholesale and deliberate destruction of environment upon which humanity depends a criminal offense of ecocide with penalties. That sounds very interesting. Another one on climate justice, nations shall facilitate meaningful and inclusive youth participation in decision-making in all matters relating to climate emergency and ecological crisis at all levels, including but not limited to setting of NDCs. And on this, including taking like youth delegates to COP26 next year. We should have a youth delegation from each country to help in decision making of their nations and to be represented at MockCOP fully, at COP, not MockCOP. Yeah. The very last one on climate justice is that nations shall implement and enforce laws to protect, or if there is an existing provision, enhance the active participation in decision making of those in the society who advocate addressing of environmental issues, social justice, and corruption, and to protect safety, their safety and their rights. In climate resilience livelihood, we had like 3 policies that were proposed by the delegates. The first one being that nations shall develop and implement a national adaptation plan and provide funding, training, and resources to enhance people and communities to adapt and mitigate as necessary to protect their livelihood from the consequences of climate emergency and ecological crisis. Still on that, the policies and practices of a country and national agencies shall support sustainable agriculture and regeneration of soils and forests. Last but not least, on climate resilient livelihood, nations shall commit to green recovery. Plans for recovery from COVID-19 shall not entrench and subsidize fossil fuel use, but shall commit nations to a just and equitable transition to sustainability and development of low carbon jobs and opportunities. We also had a theme on physical and mental health, as we believe like climate crisis also always affect an individual health, be it physically and mentally. So the very first policy proposed on physical and mental health was that nations shall ensure child rights to play, learn, and engage with natural world by enhancing policies to protect and restore biodiversity, such as establishing protected natural reserves. Another one was that nations shall ensure safe, breathable air quality by adopting strong regulations on air pollutants that require industry and commerce to significantly reduce emissions and pollution. That goes hand in hand with IPCC 1.5 regulation. The very last one on physical and mental health was that nations shall provide necessary funding for child-friendly mental health service, including but not limited to prevention and treatment of eco-anxiety and provision of care that directly addresses the climate emergency related stressors. So the eco-anxiety that Heta was talking about comes in on that policy. So you find out that these policies are very important with regards to individual health and the physical well-being. So the very important one that nations are really struggling with right now is the NDCs. So we want to ensure that each country plans, programs, and laws shall be fully aligned with the IPCC call to limit global warming to below 1.5 degrees. The very last one on the NDCs is that countries shall spell out detailed plan and timetable for a whole of society energy transition away from coal, oil, gas, and other fossil fuel, which include ban on future developments of fossil fuel reserves and a detailed action plan on the sound management of the life cycle of the renewable energy equipment. Last but not least, this came out, actually, this thing came out on the last 2 days of the negotiation. It's called Protecting Biodiversity. So in protecting biodiversity, because we know that biodiversity really plays a major role in this world. So in protecting biodiversity, nations shall commit to ambitious targets and the funding and actions to deliver for the protection and restoration of at least 30% of land and marine ecosystem by 2030. This must benefit biodiversity, sequester carbon, and ensure that integrity of indigenous people and local communities' rights are upheld. The very last one was that nations and at national and international level, countries shall phase out all non-essential single-use plastics, tracking into account the needs of people with disabilities, and introduce a circular system for all materials which promote reuse and repair of single-use plastics. So these policies were developed by the delegates, and remember the age group of the delegates that were available that took part in MockCOP26. So this really shows you that how ambitious youth are and what they really want to see in their future, especially regarding these climate issues. So Dominica, those were our policies, and that is what came out of the 2-week negotiations at MockCOP26. Thank you very much.
thanks to you, and I really appreciate this final declaration. And just in broadcast, I will propose you to include this document inside the chart of values of the Climate Social Forum. We have this chart of values that is like the list of the reference document on which we are basing in our work on Climate Social Forum. And so if you are in agree, and if you are glad, it would be very nice to include also this declaration inside the chart of values of Climate Social Forum.
I will definitely do that. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks a lot. It's been amazing. And also I share with all the participants, and also if you want, Pauline, also to insert the link of the final statement of a mock-up inside the track document of today, in order to like then pass on the chart of value, because I think that is very a great result from this participatory process that I just remember, for the ones that has just joined, has been led all by youths, all by like a grassroots initiative that started as similar as a Climate Social Forum after the news about the postponement of COP26, and the youths demonstrated that they can do, and the adults need to take the right decision, because the youths are very clear-minded. So now, maybe waiting that Kelo can join for the last minutes, I will let the floor for questions from the participants. I saw that Sol was asking something. Maybe Sol, you can, if you want to, open the mic and speak. And also, just remember that Sol was also a panelist in MockCOP. So, Sol, the floor is yours. Can you hear us? Okay, maybe she's at the computer. If there are questions from the floor, eventually, about the mock-up. Okay, Sol's back. So, okay.
Hi, thanks. First of all, thank you for taking the initiative. This was something many of us were praying for, that we wished would happen, especially when COP26 didn't happen. I felt it was very well represented for those who otherwise would be at the COP. So thank you. And I'm wondering, first of all, how can we take what you did with MockCOP and continue? Are you open to collaborating on future events? And because we're working on an Earth Day event where we're inviting many organizations and associations and movements to actually coordinate a big global event together, so that we're all supporting each other's intellectual property and respecting each other's passion and work and action that they're willing to take, the energy that everyone is willing to put in. We just want to kind of invite partnerships and do an alliance together of initiatives to raise awareness all together this year. Kind of also to make up for the shock we were all in last year. But also we're surrounded by, and MockCOP was a magnet for people taking action. So why not bring our integrity together and then do a lot more and amplify and multiply our individual work, but also for the sake of the collective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much on that. Actually, we are open for collaboration. We have a second phase of MockCOP just starting as from January. The second phase involves like lobbying governments at national level and international level to ensure that youth participation occur at COP26, and also to adopt these policies that I've just read. So we are much open for collaborations, and if you really need, you can like send us an email at hello@mockcop.org, and you can also CC me, Pauline at mockcop.org, or Pauline Owiti at protonmail.ch. I'll have that on the chat. And also, something that I forgot to say is that when we say that countries, we mean that it's the government, it's you, it's everyone. We just don't leave it for the government. So that was a disclaimer I wanted to make, because like I was presenting this policy to the government on Friday, the Ministry of Environment here in Kenya, and that they asked me where do the youth come in now that you are just talking about the government. I'm like, when we say Kenya or a country, we mean even those in it. We mean the government, we mean the investors, we mean youth. The whole community should take part. Yeah. So I don't know, Sol, if I've answered your question concerning what you are asking.
Yes, you have. And I would say maybe if there could be one kind of takeaway, I mean, I was inspired by We Are the World and We Are the Children. And perhaps everyone is a child, whether we are responsible for our actions or take responsibility or not is another question. So being that we are speaking about our future, what kind of is there one sentence that you kind of took away from MockCOP and thought, wow, this was something? Like, what was that kind of one sentence that you all walked away saying about this experience that from your side? Our side was amazing.
Yeah, actually it was amazing. One word that I personally took from that was that I was hopeful that all these treaties, all these policies or declarations will be adopted by the government, different governments, and also hopeful that everything will be fine regardless of the situation we are in right now, and also hoping that the future will be brighter than what we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what we get when we do it together, no?
I totally support this sentence of Sol. So, if there are one last question for Pauline, and then we'll leave the floor to the next speaker. So, if there aren't, I will maybe let Pauline to make some final closure and final statement for closing the session.
Okay, so I see a question in the Q&A.
Okay.
Is it proper to say that youth voices from Asia or Africa are not heard? When we talk about youth voices not being heard, mostly it's always at the national level or at the international level, but the larger part is at the national level. So it actually depends with your leaders. It actually depends with your norms. As a person from Africa, values and norms are very important. And there are places that you should be making decisions, and there are places that you are not even allowed to make decisions. So actually, it depends with your culture. It depends with the kind of leaders you have. It depends with what actions you are taking. Taking actions like, should I give an example? There are some actions that obviously, if you take in regards to climate advocacy, and you really want to involve the government will like term you as a terrorist. We have so many occasions where the government have termed climate advocacy or climate activists as terrorists because the way they are approaching youth involvement or in their involvement as a whole. So we can't really say that Africa and Asia, like their voices have not been heard. Yes, maybe at the international level, their voices have not been heard, or at the COP, but there are reasons as to why their voices were not heard. Maybe their presence was not at COP. So integrating somebody whose presence is not there, these decisions and everything is very difficult. And also, you find that at the national levels, your leaders don't want to give you the opportunity. So also integrating your voices is very difficult. So it really starts with the leaders, and also you, what kind of technique or strategy are you using to approach the government itself? Yeah, that's what I would say. So my last remark would be that let's continue taking action. Like in the recent past, I've just loved how youth have just come up and taken action in regards to climate advocacy and climate action. So that's a thumbs up for me. We should all like have that spirit and continue taking action for this climate if we really want to have a better place to live. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Pauline. It's been a great pleasure to have you here, and Kelo, and also thanks for sharing your experience. And I kindly invite you to stay with us also for the roundtable eventually. And I will also invite you to the closing plenary of the Climate Social Forum. I will send in an email to all of you for joining eventually. And now I'll